We're taping this on Sunday morning because it's a bit of a historic moment and so unusual. I'm in the middle of Interstate 84 in downtown Portland. We're here because there's been a huge effort underway overnight to clean a massive stretch of graffiti along here, and it's looking pretty good. You've probably seen some of the coverage by now, but what you haven't seen is my one-on-one conversation with Governor Tina Kotek. We're going to talk about graffiti, livability, and the future of Portland. And we heard from a lot of our viewers when they heard this was going to go on. Very excited, saying, finally, this will be great. Okay. But again, I got to bring you back to the question, how do you keep it from reappearing tonight? Maybe not all of it, but the tagging goes on.
Well, if it does reappear, if we start seeing things, I think what people need to know is we're not going to stop. This is just the beginning. And I think it's people saying to folks, if you know someone who's doing this, say like, hey, is that what you want your community to look like? How about here instead? How about there instead? And we have to provide those opportunities for folks. Is
there any executive action that you can take that would either enhance penalties against them or make it harder?
I think what's on the books now is, we need to enforce it. It was good to see that coverage of the one tagger and all the,
in his garage
supply that they had, really monitoring that. We have made it harder in the city, I think, to get spray paint.
Buy that,
Oh yeah. As someone who had to buy a can once, I'm like, I got to get outside the locked door and all this stuff.
Trying to paint patio furniture or something.
Right, exactly. I think it's important for people to know this isn't a one and done. You don't solve everything in one night. This is a reset for this corridor. People have to stand up for their own community and say, like, yeah, I'm going to pick up the trash. I see it. I'm going to ask people not to do this when let's talk to our kids. It's like, this is not what you should be doing. And I think this kind of livability project just begets more pride in the city, and hopefully that will have long-term impact as well.
Well, hello, everyone. As you can see, I am not Pat Dooris. David Mulco here filling in. Pat's feeling a bit under the weather tonight, but we wanted to make sure we brought you this story today since graffiti is one of the top issues we have heard from you about for the entire lifetime of the story, actually. You might remember during this year's legislative session, Oregon lawmakers approved $20 million for ODOT to clean up highways in the Portland area, including removing trash and homeless camps. $4 million was specifically earmarked to remove graffiti, and this weekend that work took a massive step forward with a 5-mile shutdown of I-84 from Saturday night into Sunday. About 13 hours overall so that crews could tackle that tagging and clean up the garbage without any vehicles around. For many visitors, landing at PDX, that stretch of interstate between I-5 and I-205, is one of their first impressions of the Rose City on their way into town. And Governor Kotek, who, by the way, joined in the painting to cover up graffiti, says making the city look better was a priority that came out of her Central City Task Force last fall. Remember that? It's something she's also heard from people across the state.
This city is so important for the entire state. I heard it on the road all last year when I was visiting all the counties, right? What's happening to Portland? Is it gonna, get back to its, former glory? This is a process, and we've all been through a lot, but this city matters. It matters for our economy. It matters for people around the state, and as a governor, I have to be supportive, right? The Portland Central City Task Force was a message. As your governor, I care. We need to all work together. We can do things when we come together, and this is a perfect example of that.
Okay, the governor told Pat something that we also hear from a lot of you. She wants to see Portland return to its glory days, so to speak, and cleaning up is a big part of that.
I have a very vivid memory of my first experience in Portland was 1987. It's when I moved out to, and I was changing trains to go down to Eugene, and I was hanging around Old Town, and I was just, having come from the East Coast, it's like, this is a really clean city. Like, yeah, it's a city. There's going to be some trash and some graffiti, but it's like, in general, very clean. It's like, that's the Portland that people remember. That's Portland people want to see going forward. And it's why one of the reasons people visit here. Yeah. It's beautiful. The city's beautiful. We want to keep it that way.
Well, of course, there is the concern, which Pat asked about right at the top, that the graffiti and maybe the garbage is just going to return as soon as the highway reopens. It reopened on Sunday, right? Well, the governor said the graffiti they cleaned up this weekend had been allowed to build for years, and ODOT's director, Chris Strickler, admitting, yeah, there's no way to guarantee it won't come back, though he did add this.
There will be some that comes back, certainly, and our efforts are to continue to attack that problem because that problem is a societal problem for all Oregonians, and everybody's experiencing the impact of that. And while I can't guarantee you that it won't come back in near term, I can guarantee you that it won't be as bad as it has been, and our crews are committed to continuing to provide that effort and provide that service so that we can continue to attack the problem.
Meanwhile, the governor says she wants to see programs that can provide other avenues, that's an interesting way of putting it, for would-be taggers.
I also hope people will put that passion into something else somewhere else, because that's passion, right? Someone really cares about what they're doing. How about we find a different place to do that and not along a roadside?
And
that's my general reaction to that.
I've heard some argue that the point is putting it where it's not supposed to be. That's part of the art.
Well, I think it's that, that challenge of, that risk taking.
Fight against the man and everything else.
So maybe we just need to get people really high walls that they can go do that somewhere else.
All right, the highway cleanup comes at the same time as Portland's new ordinance around homeless camping takes effect. Enforcement was supposed to start at the beginning of this month, was put briefly on hold because of the extreme heat. It's worth noting, so far we haven't heard of anything changing on the streets. So Pat also asked Governor Kotek what she thinks about the new ban, which we should note had to follow a state law. It is House Bill 3115 that Kotek championed when she was Speaker of the House. The law essentially says regulations around camping have to be what is called objectively reasonable.
Well, I think the new ordinance here in the city of Portland is in alignment with the law, and there's been a restriction on camping in high-risk corridors for quite a while, and I think the city's been enforcing that, and I think that's appropriate. I think common sense, everyone would say that is reasonable and objective. To say camping in along the roadside like this is very dangerous, and I think they should be enforcing that. So the legislature is going to take it up. What I'm focusing on is, does the current ordinance work? Is it being enforced fairly? And are we making progress? And I think the city's in a better spot than they were in the previous version.
And I would guess if the answer is yes to all that, then you would think nothing needs to change.
Well, I think that's the conversation the legislature has to have. It's like, how has it been working? Now, a lot of it was on hold waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on grants passed, but the goal here is whatever we do, let's be clear with folks. Let's make sure people are attached to services and help them get into shelter. And I think, it's working.
Of course, we're still waiting to see how those efforts bear out and if they make a difference in people's perceptions of the Rose City. Though back to that stretch of I-84 for a second, because we have to wait and see as well if those combined efforts make a big difference in the way people view the city. But at least for one viewer, the cleanup has made a difference. Viewer Caprice sent us an email saying Highway 84 through town looks fabulous! ! Thank you, Caprice. The cleanup was far more extensive than I'd pictured. It looks so lush and refined. No graffiti. The highway signs are once again green and legible. There are no tarps, tents, hoarding piles, dirty clothes, etc. in the trees or along the side of the pavement. She went on to tell us the supports for the bridges are clear of all marking. There are no branches, trash, leaves, or discarded shoes and cans anywhere. Your earlier reporting on the cleanup inspired me to take that way, which I usually avoid, instead of the surface roads to my Monday morning appointment. What a pleasant surprise, all caps. Well done, Portland. All right, it's time for your thoughts. Tell us what you think or what you have noticed along I-84 or other highways. Are you optimistic about the efforts to clean up Portland? And in your view, what more needs to be done? You can send us an email at thestory@kdw.com or leave us a voicemail. It is 503-226-5090.